Many people attempt to downplay the current situation and the situation that has been going on for a number of years now. However, if you look at the totality of the circumstances and you step outside of the situation and you observe the situation, what you will notice is that everything about SARS-CoV-2, everything about coronavirus, and everything about COVID is demonic and wicked. When you look at the statistics of what has taken place over the past several years, you see a number of dynamics. Now, some people might argue that the stats are not accurate, the stats are skewed, and I would be the first to admit that they indeed are. However, they are still painting a picture of something. And so what you see here is as of September the 6th, there have been over 770 million confirmed cases of SARS-CoV-2. I'm specifically saying SARS-CoV-2 versus COVID because there is no diagnostic criteria for COVID other than a positive SARS-CoV-2 test. There has also been noted over 6 million fatalities. Now, what's interesting about this also is that with the level of advanced healthcare that is supposed to be emblematic of the United States has the highest rates of these cases, highest rates of these fatalities. And so the mortality rate is extremely high in the United States in contrast to other places with similar demographics. And so when you look at this entire situation, you see something that is altogether not an okay situation. So again, when you look at the definition, the meaning of demonic, when you look at the definition and the meaning of wicked, you see SARS-CoV-2, you see coronavirus, and you see COVID and all of the dynamics that surround those constructs. What we're going to be looking at now is this new variant or subvariant that has popped up, and it has been given a nickname. Some instances, they refer to it as a code name. And the name is ERIS. People name things for a reason. A name describes something. It tells you something about the thing that is being named. It signifies something. And so this new variant, if you will, has been named ERIS. This is not a benign name, even if individuals couch it in those terms. And we're going to look at the significance of this name, ERIS, in keeping with the dynamic of COVID, SARS-CoV, being demonic and wicked. And this name, ERIS, is no exception to this particular dynamic. Many people are familiar with the name ERIS at this present time based upon this nomenclature dynamic. And so ERIS is the name that has been given to this subvariant. However, ERIS exists outside of scientific nomenclature and has a significant place in mythology, theology, and history. And for this reason, the title of our discussion is ERIS, the Destroyer, because that is the umbrella for ERIS. And we're going to just quickly look at some of the dynamics that tie ERIS to this construct of the destroyer and fits in with this idea, this reality of COVID, SARS-CoV-2, and coronavirus being demonic and wicked. So let's get started. We're going to start off with this commentary from Yale Medicine in this article entitled What to Know About EG.5 ERIS, the latest coronavirus strain. And in this commentary, it indicates this summer that strain is called EG.5 or informally ERIS, nicknamed after the Greek goddess of strife and discord. And this subvariant is coming from the variant known as Omicron, which has its own unique history. And so it's indicated here that ERIS is already the dominant coronavirus subvariant in the country. So keep that in mind. We don't really know that much in terms of the public about Omicron. We don't really know that much in terms of the public about ERIS. But what we do know is there is a history to this name ERIS, and this is being pointed out here. Again, ERIS is the Greek goddess of strife and discord. The question is, why would anyone name a subvariant, a variant, or anything else related to coronavirus, SARS-CoV-2, or COVID, ERIS? Now we're going to look a little deeper at this construct ERIS, this name ERIS, this goddess understood as ERIS, and you're going to see that it is continuing that theme of SARS-CoV-2, coronavirus, and COVID being related to dynamics that are understood as demonic and wicked. The article goes on to indicate that there are some mutation dynamics with respect to the spike protein for ERIS that allows ERIS to potentially uh, be evasive in terms of the immune system. And so it may be able to evade the immune response. And this is similar to all of the other variants and subvariants that have popped up. And here in the Dictionary of Greek and Roman Biography and Mythology, we find out a little bit more about Eris. It would be interesting to find out which scientist named this thing Eris. At any rate, it indicates that Eris is the goddess that calls forth war and discord. So, in addition to being the goddess of strife and discord, this is also a deity that is associated with war. And again, when you look at the name Eris, you can see how it is related to a number of other words that are related to war. It indicates here that she has an insatiable desire for bloodshed, and so she is related to the battlefield. She is also related to this idea of creating misfortune for man or misfortune for humanity. She is a goddess that is associated with suffering. She is also related to the entity known as Mars. And so, if you recall the history of Mars, you know that history includes this idea of war. So, this Eris entity signifies this idea of war, this idea of battle, this idea of bloodshed. Going on here, we see additional information about Eris. It indicates here that Eris was the goddess or personified spirit or daemona of strife, discord, contention, and rivalry. Again, that idea of war, that idea of the battlefield. Now, what's interesting about this is that she's not just presented as a goddess, but she is presented as a particular type of spirit. And we're going to look at the translation of this so that we can see a little bit more about Eris. And as you can see here, in keeping with the dynamics surrounding SARS-CoV-2, coronavirus, and COVID, that this goddess, Eris, translates, this daemona translates as demon. And so Eris is a demon. Eris is associated with constructs such as infernal, devilish, fiendish, satanic, and diabolic. And so when you see Eris, you know that Eris does not come to play. Eris is understood as the infernal one, and we're going to look at what this is all about, which again points to the dynamic of ERIS being synonymous with COVID, SARS-CoV, and coronavirus. ERIS is also demonic and wicked. And so ERIS is the infernal one. We're going to look very quickly at this construct of infernal to get a better idea of what is being signified with respect to this new thing that is growing and expanding with respect to the coronavirus. Before we go further, we're going to just quickly look at this depiction of Eris. And so you can see this deity that is supposed to signify Eris. This deity is a winged deity. So this deity looks part human, has some very interesting pointed feet, and then also has the wings. And so this Eris is a chimera. This Eris is, according to this depiction, a mixture of entities. And here you see additional references to Eris. Eris is understood as not only strife, but an infernal monster. She is associated with the lunatic discordia, strife. And so here we have this subvariant, this variant understood as Eris. And again, Eris is understood as the infernal one. What do we mean by infernal one? Infernal one means that, according to this Oxford Languages, that which is relating to or characteristic of hell or the underworld, that which is hellish, that which is from the subterranean region, that which is related to Hades. And here from Webster's Dictionary, you have a bit more information about this understanding of Eris as infernal. It indicates here that infernal, so when we say that Eris is infernal, the infernal one, that Eris is related to the netherworld of the dead. Eris is related to hell. Eris is related to that which is hellish and diabolic. Eris is related to that which is damnable. And so ultimately, Eris is synonymous with the construct of destruction. Accordingly, in terms of mythology and theology, you have Eris associated with two entities in mythology, two entities in theology. And those entities are Apollo or Apollyon and Abaddon. In addition to Apollyon and Abaddon, you also see that Eris is associated with a number of other dynamics and other names. What's also interesting is that Eris is associated with Eri or Eri, ERI, which is a deity in the Igbo religion. You also see Eris associated with, again, Mars, Ari, Aries, and a number of other constructs that relate to this construct of war and discord and destruction. And so we're going to quickly look at these constructs of Abaddon and Apollyon to get a better idea of what is being presented here with this entity, this microbe that has been identified with this entity known as Eris. And so Eris is simultaneously associated with destroyer and destruction. Abaddon is the word for destruction or ruin, the place of destruction or ruin. And in this way, it is associated with Apollyon. Abaddon, consistent with Eris, indicates annihilate, that which is lost, broken, corrupt, destroyed. And you see that destroy, this comes up 33 times with respect to this idea of Abaddon. Destruction, perishing, obliterating, ruin, wasting, utterly destroying. Ultimately, it means to perish. And here you can also see that Abaddon as a proper noun is related to the place of ruin known as Sheol. And here again, you can see that Abaddon or ERIS is indicating destruction, perishing, and again, Hades. The Jewish Virtual Library goes on to indicate that Abaddon is associated with what is known as the angel of the bottomless pit, whose name is Apollyon. Now, Abaddon is destruction, the place of destruction. Apollyon is the actual destroyer. And here you can see this is a basic understanding of Apollo and Apollyon. Both entities are understood as being related to the construct of destruction. Both entities, in one way or another, are understood as the destroyer. And so here you see, even with this entry, that the Greeks most often associated Apollo's name with the Greek verb to destroy. And here you see this reference to Revelation 9:11 that indicates Apollyon, New Testament, the destroyer, a name that is given to the entity known as the devil. Bible Tools has another offering with respect to ERIS and the relationship between ERIS and Abaddon or Apollyon. Abaddon and Apollyon are also associated with the idea of the construct, the entity known as Satan. It indicates here, with respect to Revelation 9:11 again, that Abaddon and Apollyon are both associated with the construct of destroyer. And so the spirit that is emanating from Apollyon, emanating from Abaddon, is a destroying spirit. And so everything that is associated with it is associated with destruction, perishing, and ruin. So by extension, this is what Eris is all about. The reason why, according to this, that individuals are not clear about this destroying spirit is because the destroying spirit, Apollyon, Abaddon, this particular spirit is also a deceiving spirit. And this name Eris is tied to a number of other constructs, and it also has an interesting transliteration. And so Eris is also understood as Eris. So ERIS and ARIS. And you're going to see how that translation or transliteration works in just a second. And here you can see that transliteration, so you can see how similar these dynamics are with respect to Eris and Eris. And if you again are looking very closely, you can see that Eris or Eris looks very similar to a number of other words that are associated with this construct Eris. Now, while Eris is being presented as a scientific dynamic, clearly there are a number of dynamics going on with respect to this name Eris that are outside of the sciences, that are related to mythology, that are related to theology. What's also interesting is that Eris is associated with this dynamic of destruction, this dynamic of destroyer, these entities, Apollyon and Abaddon. But when you look in the book of Revelation, John, whoever that is, was having this interesting vision wherein John takes the entity known as Jesus out of the position of lamb and puts Jesus in the position that is similar to Apollyon. And so instead of Jesus being the lamb, Jesus in this vision that John, again, whoever he was, he was having this vision wherein Jesus is presented as a lion. Now, a lion, according to scripture, according to history, is not a meek and mild entity. A lion is a destroyer. A lion is a destroying beast. And a lion is associated with the construct of Apollyon. And we can talk about that a little bit later so that you can see what the relationship is. But there is a very direct relationship between lion and Apollyon. And of course, this fits because when you think about this apex predator known as the lion, you have this piercing beast that definitely fits the construct of Abaddon or fits the construct of Apollyon. It is definitely a destroyer. There's nothing meek or mild about a lion. And those of you who are familiar with the construct of lion, you know that another word for lion is Ari. Ari, however, also is associated with the construct of eagle and the sun. And we can talk about all of those dynamics a little later, but right now we are focusing on this idea of Ari or Eris being associated with Abaddon and Apollyon, and Eris signifying the infernal one. And so, for all of the benign talk about Eris and the naming of this entity, Eris, it's important to keep in mind that even if initially this was presented as something benign, names are important. And so, right now, that entity is understood as a destroying microbe. It is a microbe that is named perishing one. It is a microbe that is related to war and strife. It is a microbe that is associated with destruction.